Good morning everybody, how are you all? It's Laura here from See Clear Counselling and it's Wednesday, so I'm here with my tip on helping you manage and reduce your anxiety. And today I'm going to be talking about experiments and experimenting. Now, the dictionary describes an experiment as a procedure to make a discovery, test a hypothesis to support or refute that hypothesis. Now, in anxiety, experimenting is really useful at being able to help us refute some of those hypotheses that we have about anxiety. And so today I'm going to talk about how you can use those experiments to help reduce your anxiety. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura. I'm a counsellor and cognitive behavioural therapist, and I run my own private practice, See Clear Counselling, in Poole in Dorset. And if you want to know more about my services, you can go to my website www.seeclearcounselling.co.uk. I also run excuse me, a Facebook anxiety support group, and you can search for that in the Facebook search bar, Beating Anxiety. And if you join us now in January, you can take part in our 5-day challenge, which is a self-care audit, which we will be doing in the beginning of January. So as I say, today I'm going to be talking about experimenting. And anxiety and depression can often be caused or increased when we filter out our perception of reality. Often anxiety and depression come with negative thoughts and feelings that are based on either previous experiences that we've had, or that we are thinking about, overthinking what can happen in the future, and have thoughts and feelings of fear about what can happen in the future. And we can worry a lot, do a lot of overthinking, and do what we call catastrophizing about what might happen in a certain situation. So it might be perhaps that you are no longer driving because you've had perhaps a car crash in the past. Maybe you stopped going to the supermarket because you've had a panic attack in the supermarket. Or it might be perhaps that you're too afraid to go on holiday because you have this fear about the plane crashing. So you can see how these negative thoughts and feelings can lead to and increase our anxiety and depression. Now, experiments are there to help us explore and test the truthfulness of those beliefs. They can help you to challenge how you see the world, how you see other people, and how you see yourself. And through experimentation, we can start to kind of make a difference to what our beliefs are, because experimenting helps us, as I say, test these hypotheses. So say, for example, that you are avoiding something because of how it makes you feel in the past. So, as I say, for example, perhaps avoiding driving because you've had a car crash in the past, or avoiding the supermarket because you've had a panic attack in the supermarket once before. Or you're avoiding something because of your fear of what that might mean to you. So, as I say, perhaps avoiding going on holiday because of your fear about that plane crashing. So your experiment is about testing if what you think is going to happen really does happen. And quite often what we find is that as we start to experiment, that our past experience doesn't mean that things are always going to happen again. And also it doesn't mean that what we feel is going to happen, what we fear is going to happen, does really happen. And quite often what we have is this 100% belief that something will happen every time we are in that situation, or we put ourselves in that situation. And So something that we do with the experimenting is we test if this is true. Do things happen 100% of the time like your belief says it will? And very often when we experiment, we uncover that things don't happen 100% of the time. So it may be that perhaps when you go to the supermarket, that maybe 2 out of 20 times you may have a panic attack. But that doesn't mean that it's going to happen every time you go to the supermarket. But you don't know that until you start experimenting with it. So if you are consistently avoiding something, you never really know whether what you believe is the reality or not. And actually, because anxiety tells us that something is going to happen 100% of the time, then we stop doing these things. But if we start to uncover through experimentation that these things don't happen every time, it allows us to rethink what's going on. We can reframe how we think about things, and we can also alter our behaviour to allow us to step into those things that are fearful for us. And from the results of your experiments that you do, you can start to change how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. And as you start to act on the results of your experiments, then you start to reduce down the anxiety that you're feeling. And the same thing can happen with depression, that if we start to experiment with things that we feel we can't do and then uncover that occasionally we can do those things, we can start to reframe how we're thinking and feeling and behaving in those situations. So experimenting is a really good way of being able to take what we're distorting about the truth, that perception that we believe is the truth, and we start to work with what is more the reality, what is the truth of what really happens. But without the experiment, we don't have the results to work with to help us change the way that we do things. So experimenting is a really good exercise to try to help you reduce your anxiety. So maybe it's about thinking about the things at the moment that cause you anxiety or a low mood, and to think about how you might be able to experiment with those things. Maybe it's experimenting with how you think, maybe it's experimenting with how you behave, maybe it's experimenting, asking other people to do some things that help you understand that situation better. And through that experimenting, you can then start to take the results of your experiment and reframe how you think, feel and behave in certain situations, which will lead to that reduction in your anxiety. So it's worth start thinking about how you can experiment to reduce your anxiety. Now, it might be quite difficult for you to think about what you need to do on your own, and perhaps you don't know what to do with the results of your experiment. And that's where counselling can really help, because a counsellor can help you form those experiments and then can help you kind of process those results and look at ways that you can change your thinking and your behaviour based on those results of the experiments that you try. So I hope that's been helpful to you today. Maybe take a little time thinking about what experiments you can try to help you reduce your anxiety. And I'll be back again next Wednesday with another little tip on reducing down your anxiety. And as I say, if you'd like to join my Facebook group, Beating Anxiety, it's a support group for those of you who struggle with anxiety. And if you join us now, in the new year, we have a 5-day self-care audit where we will be looking at how self-care can improve how you feel and lead to managing and reducing your anxiety. So it would be lovely if you could join us. Just search for Beating Anxiety in the search bar. And I'd like to say thank you to Alex and to Bridget and to John and to Stuart. Thank you very much for joining me today. If you're watching on replay, please do put #replay. It helps send out the video to other people. And if you have any questions or comments on anything that I've talked about today, please do put them into the comments and I'll happily answer any of those. Not now, but I'll come back to them and answer them in the comments below if you do have any comments you want to make. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye for now.